really the part about branding that no one likes to do is the inner work because people think that a brand is a logo. I own a design studio and I'd absolutely love to create a logo for you, but you're not going to be happy with it if you don't know who you are and who you serve and how you serve them, because your logo should be representative of your vibe. It should be representative of your values. And that's not going to come through if none of that has been worked through yet.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life and in a world of visibility where brand matters to your business. I'm excited to have this special person on the show who's had a wide range of experience when it comes to this topic. She's a real estate branding expert and serves as the chief visionary at Elevate Design Studios, a senior brand strategist at Sell It Like Serhant, and the creator of Content Lab. And with over 15 years, she's dedicated to shaping standout personal brands for real estate professionals. And today we're going to talk all things branding, social media, and thriving like an introverted entrepreneur, which I'm excited about. So welcome to the show, Candice Carcioppolo. Did I?
That's it. You got it. Nailed it.
I probably butchered it. I'm like, wait a minute.
No.
All right. First things first, like, how did you find your passion in branding?
Well, I really found my passion in branding when I realized that everyone has a personal brand, whether or not you create it with intention. When I realized that I got to decide what people said about me, what they believed about me, what they shared with other people by the words that I used, by the locations I showed up, by the stories that I shared, I realized, oh, this is extremely powerful. And people just aren't being intentional about how they want others to perceive them. So, to backtrack a little bit, I was a middle school history teacher for 7 years. And I taught in LA, I taught in Las Vegas. And to be honest, I was just too bougie for that life. I I was a single woman in my early 30s, and I was thinking, I'm going to wait on a 3% raise for the rest of my life. I went back to school. I got my master's degree. I think my raise was like $2,000 a year for getting a master's degree, right? It was not anything. I had to pay off my student debt, so it didn't even make sense, right? And I was thinking, I can't wait on a 3% raise for the rest of my entire life. I knew that I wanted to live in a nice community. I couldn't afford to live in that community. And I knew something had to change. So within education, I found a new role and I did make more money and I enjoyed that role. And I was a coach. I coached teachers. And what we would do is we would backwards plan. We would say, hey, these are the goals that you have for yourself. So what are the actions you need to take to make that true, to make that possible? And when I was coaching teachers, I felt like it was really powerful and I was getting trained on coaching. And I said, I can coach anyone. I don't have to just coach a teacher. I was really naive back then. And I decided that I would leave my job. I made a 6-month countdown and I said, I'm just going to coach people. I was already coaching people on the side. And I said, if I just coached a few people, I would match my income I'm already making right now and I'd work way less. So I left my job and the first year was great. I matched my income in my first year. And the second year rolled around and crickets. No one was hiring me. No one knew I existed. And no one really knew what I did. And the way I was describing it at that time was I was saying that I help you to grow your side hustle because every teacher had side hustles back then, right? You had to have a yoga. There were yoga instructors and t-shirt businesses and all these things on the side because everyone's trying to make a little bit more money. And when you think about it, people who are in a side hustle, they don't have large money to invest in personal one-on-one coaching, right? So I just didn't have a model that made sense for the target audience that I was talking to. Anyhow, I hired a coach, and my coach helped me to really hone in on who did I actually want to work with? What did I have to offer them? And how can I get in front of them consistently? At the time, I was doing a lot of in-person networking, but there's only so many networking events you can go to. And if you're not capitalizing on that relationship after, then it doesn't really matter how many events you go to.
Mhm.
And she encouraged me to go live every day for 6 months. We were working together for 6 months. She's like, every day, I just want you to go and I want you to talk about what you talk about with your clients. And I ended up going live 137 times in 180 days. And my life and business changed forever. And people often tell me that, okay, but Candice, what was the platform? How long did you go live for? What did you talk about? What equipment did you have? All these questions that are just like bullshit questions that take you away from what really matters. And what really matters is that in those 137 lives in 180 days, I discovered who I was and who I enjoyed talking to and what connected with my audience and what they wanted more of. And that was the beginning of me understanding the brand building journey because even within that small window of 6 months, I could change people's perception of me from thinking I was a teacher to seeing me as a coach and a leader. And I was nowhere near where I am today, but I was a few steps ahead of them.
Mhm. So I love that, like, how you discovered it. And sometimes it takes volume and repetition to actually really discover what you like or what you're passionate about. And so today, after working with so many different people and being in this space for many, many years and having the knowledge, what do you define as a successful brand?
A successful brand is a brand who is consistently sought out. If you're in a space right now where you're feeling like you're chasing, that's okay. We've all been there. But if you're feeling like you're chasing, that's probably an indicator that you want to sit back and really think about your message. Who are you talking to? Your outlets. Are
Mhm.
you actually solving the problem that the person on the other side thinks that they have, even if you know it's not that problem, right?
Yeah. So true. And so you also serve as a chief strategist officer for, I think, one of the strongest brands, Ryan Serhant, for Sell It Like Serhant. I'd love to know, what does that really look like for you? What is it that you do? And then I'd love to hear like how you actually got into the role of meeting Ryan or working in
Yeah,
the capacity of, did you guys grow up together?
we did not. I love telling this story because it seems like it's impossible, but it's absolutely not. And the reason we connected is because of branding. So after I'd worked with my coach, I started creating content and I realized that there was a niche in real estate. My family's in real estate. I worked with a few real estate agent clients who were trying to grow their business. And I realized in a short period of time, we could turn around a real estate business pretty quick. And so they started all referring me to their friends. So maybe I'd worked with 5 or 6 real estate agents at the time. And I started making content to real estate agents specifically because I enjoyed working with them and I knew that there can be a quick transformation and everyone's looking for a quick transformation, right? So
Hmm.
my whole feed, I just started talking about real estate over and over again. And this was in 2020 when Clubhouse was a thing. Were you on Clubhouse?
Oh yeah,
Oh
in
yeah, right?
in the heat of the pandemic.
Yep, exactly. So I was in Clubhouse and I was in all the real estate rooms. And all of a sudden, Serhant started hosting a weekly real estate room. So I went to one, I listened, I went to the next one, and I was like, I'm going to talk today. I'm going to talk to these people. And I had seen $1 Million Listing. Like I knew who he was and I knew he was a big deal. And so I went in a room and someone asked a question and I knew I could nail the answer. It was about branding and it was about real estate agents. And I'd worked with 5 real estate agents before that. I don't know the number. I'm just throwing something out there, but
Yeah.
and so I was like, I can answer this. So I answered the question and I went in like true Candice fashion, like no holds barred, just digging in there. And I get a message from the president of Serhant Ventures that says, hey, we should talk. And so while I was talking, he was stalking my Instagram, he was listening to what I had to say, and everything I was talking about is in alignment with the way Ryan approaches brand strategy. And so they had 2 brand strategists at the time, but they were growing their business and they knew they needed to have more people, but they weren't in a place where they could train people necessarily. They were a startup at the time. And so they needed someone who had experience in this role. Within 2 months, I was sitting in a penthouse with Ryan Serhant in Las Vegas, talking to their pro members about social media strategy. And I have that picture. I'm gonna post it actually. I'll post it today.
Yeah.
Because it seems so unbelievable that a few years before that, I was a middle school history teacher, but I decided that I was gonna learn, educate myself, put myself out there, share what I was passionate about. And that was in alignment with something that someone else was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to tell this story because people might say, well, Candice, like niching down to specifically branding and niching down to specifically real estate, like you're making your pool so small. Couldn't you help anyone with branding? And I can say, yes, like we branded a restaurant a couple years ago, we branded a boutique. Of course, I could help other people with their branding, but having a really narrow focus makes me the expert within that community.
Yeah.
And people are happy to say my name first. Right before we got on this call, Raquel was like, so many people have said your name to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we're all in the real estate space, right? It's not a huge pool, to be honest. And so that is all by design.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think you went from generalist to specialist, right? When
yes,
you actually find your niche. And what I love about what the story that you shared is you put yourself in the room, but you also showed up. There's one thing to put yourself in the room and be quiet or not add value when you know you can add value. Everyone can add value to a room, but you actually showed up and you just never know where how you show up, that opportunity can lead you. Cause I always believe that you're always one connection away from a totally different life decision.
it's so true. And I try to tell people that over and over again. I also need to share this part of the story. I also went home and called my best friend and was like, oh my gosh, Sirhan wants to talk to me. I don't think I could do it. And she said, excuse me. Yeah, you definitely can do it. You're showing up. You're doing that thing. It's like they had me do some exercises before we finalized the decision. And they were branding exercises. I could do them like the back of my hand. It wasn't a big deal, except that I still felt nervous about it. I still felt like I wasn't ready. I still felt like I wasn't worthy. I just want to say that because I think that there's people listening right now who are like, oh, yeah, Candice, like easy for you. Oh, so cool. Like they see me on stages, they see me traveling all over the place. They see me on my podcast and they're like, oh, she never has any fear or doubt. And it's just not true. There's always moments of fear, there's always moments of doubt. And what I realize is that when I say yes and when I show up before I feel like I'm ready, amazing, incredible things happen. And when I'm honest about not feeling ready with the people that love and support me, like I get the support that I need to take that step.
Mm-hmm. So true and so well said. So I want to switch gears. How important is brand for real estate agents and how do they differentiate themselves, especially in a crowded market where there's just a lot of noise today with all the things online? We've got different platforms today. We've got different outlets, like you've mentioned.
How do you stand out is the
Yeah,
first
it's a
question.
loaded question, right?
No, yeah.
And differentiate yourself from everybody else.
So in a market like today's market, especially with the NAR settlement, you want to ensure that you stand out and that your value that you offer is demonstrated consistently. That's the way you're going to stand out. But really, the part about branding that no one likes to do is the inner work
Mm.
because people think that a brand is a logo. I own a design studio and I'd absolutely love to create a logo for you, but you're not going to be happy with it if you don't know who you are and who you serve and how you serve them because your logo should be representative of your vibe. It should be representative of your values. And that's not going to come through if none of that has been worked through yet.
Yeah.
So it's the weird personal development side of branding that people try to avoid because it's not sexy and
Mhm.
it's not fun. And there's
Mhm.
often tears involved. I can't tell you how many times I work with clients who like cry because they don't know who they are, or they do know who they want to be, but they're scared that people are going to start with the, who does she think she is? Talk. And it starts with your friends and it starts with your family. And those are the hardest people to get on board with your new brand because they have an idea of who you are. And when you're stepping into that new version of yourself, it's hard for them because
Mhm.
they don't see the vision yet.
Yeah.
And every time I took a step toward my vision, even when it wasn't what people thought I should be doing, I got clearer and clearer about where I'm going. And I got clearer and clearer about what's possible for me. And so it's this weird inner work that needs to be done when you're building your brand. And sometimes it starts with your story. I was in Phoenix recently at an event, and there was a panel before I spoke. And on the panel, a real estate agent, a really successful real estate agent out of Phoenix, talked about how he was once homeless and he now works in the luxury real estate space. And he brought that up because it's what drives him. It's what propels him forward. And he loves working in the luxury space because he never thought that would be possible for him previously in his life. And just knowing where you come from and understanding how that informs where you're going is really, really huge. And people just think that a brand is colors or a
Color.
logo. And
Yeah.
it's just so much more. It's the messaging, it's who you help, it's the experience that you have, but also the experiences that you've been through.
Yeah. Where do you see that agents and entrepreneurs make mistakes today when it comes to branding?
They don't make it personal. And people want to know your story and people want to connect with you as a human being. Because if I feel like every time I slide into your DMs, it's only for business, then I'm going to be hesitant to slide into your DMs because I'm like, oh, if I slide into Raquel's DM, she's going to try to sell me something. And maybe I just want to ask you, like, hey, I know you've been doing podcasting for a long time. I'm a podcaster too. And today I had a breakdown. Can you talk me off the ledge? Maybe that's just what I needed to ask you about. And that would make a bond between us. And then when I was ready for coaching or whatever it was, I'd be like, Raquel was there for me and I'd absolutely work with her. Or when my friends asked me who they should hire, I'd be like, definitely Raquel. Here, I talk to her all the time and she's awesome. And people discount that because they're like, oh, it's not scalable. But it is because the great experience that you and I have together today means that I'm going to go say your name in a room where it matters and you're going to go say mine in a room where it matters. And those small things, even if it's a text message or DMs or comments on your feed, all help to build that relationship that makes me want to say your name first.
Yeah. So true. How does somebody, if you were to start all over, knowing what you know today, and somebody wanted to establish a brand very quickly, what's some of the things and the tactics on the tactical side of things that they should do?
You should get clear on your message and who you're talking to.
Mhm.
What problem do you solve for people? And how do you note that problem in a way that person understands? I think that's where you start. You have to do that work and you have to write it down. It has to be written down. You have to say, this is my target person, and here's the problem that I solve for them. This is what that problem looks like in their life.
Yeah.
I was on a call yesterday with someone who works with first-time homebuyers, and
Mhm.
she's like, well, I hold education seminars for first-time homebuyers whose family has never owned a home before. Like, wow, that sounds really scary because an education seminar for someone whose family never owned a home, who is not sure if they can even qualify for a home, I don't think I want to go to an education seminar. I just want you to use language that makes sense to me, that makes this feel really easy and really simple. And like you're going to hold my hand and not judge me through this process.
Mhm.
And so, really understanding who that target market is and not just doing something because you saw someone else do it. Maybe that's not right for your person.
Right.
Language really matters. So I'd get clear on your language. And then the second part is I would decide where I was going to show up with my content. And you don't have to be on every platform yet. I would say hone in on the platform that's for you and share regularly. When I say regularly, 3 to 5 times a week, and
Mhm.
not with just listed and just sold, but with actual your voice, your face, your experience, your stories. That's what's going to help you to connect with human beings. And I think where people get tripped up in the content space is that they're worried about likes and they're worried about views. And I can guarantee you, I've got many clients from videos where I had 600 views and no comments because
Mhm.
it was the right message for the right person at the right time. And so I would focus on that. And then lastly, collaboration. You have to understand that if you want to grow your business, that you're not going to do it alone. You have to do it in collaboration. So figuring out how you can connect with other people's audience, much like we're doing today.
Yeah. So well said. I do believe that business and life is never meant to do alone, right? And so now here comes the question, because I have several clients and several people that are probably listening to the show or watching this on YouTube is, Candice, how do I market for consumers, buyers and sellers, and then also recruit for my team, right? And then I've got some other like businesses that I'm in collaboration with. So how do I get all of that together, or do you just segregate it and make it all separate? Like
Yeah,
what
I
is
think it
that?
depends. Let's say you're a team leader.
Right.
I'd ask you, are you still in production or are you just trying to grow your team? What is your goal for 2024? What's your goal? And typically, when people are in, whether in growing their team mode, they're not in like high volume production or they already have an SOI that's going to keep them
Yes.
busy.
Mhm.
And so then the message for this year, if it's about team growth, is showing yourself as a leader and sharing stories of all of the agents that you've helped grow their business by your leadership.
Mhm.
So that would make sense to me, and I would really hone in on that. That doesn't mean you can't share working with clients. It just means that the majority of your messaging should be towards being a leader in the real estate space that helps people make transformation in their life and business.
Yeah.
But if you have, I don't know, a t-shirt business that seems like so different, then
Mhm.
you probably do want to have a dedicated page where people can go buy your merchandise. It doesn't mean you can't like link somewhere on your main page, but
Mhm.
I would just say it needs to just make sense.
Mhm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. It's just like Ryan Serhant, right? He's got
Yeah.
a brand, he's got a studio, he's got a media company, but it makes
And
sense when
but
you,
it makes sense. Exactly. And so you're going to see on Ryan's feed pictures of him and his family, pictures of the new launch. They just actually changed Sell It Serhant to Sell It. And so that launch just happened a couple days ago. And so you'll see that on his feed talking about that. He wrote a book. You're going to see that on his feed because we're talking about personal brands here. And a
Mhm.
personal brand is all of who you are.
Yeah.
And that's really key when you're thinking about what am I sharing. I would just say if you are selling something that's totally outside of the real estate space, then you do want a separate place where people can go binge that. But you can be an author and you can do
You
all
can,
the things on your main feed.
yeah. You study a lot of different brands, I'm sure, and you've worked with a lot of people. Who would you say has amazing personal brand when you think of like personal brands?
Oh gosh, so many people. Chelsea Pites obviously has an amazing personal brand. We had the pleasure of doing her design for her branding, and it was a pleasure to work with her because she knew exactly who she was. We knew exactly the vibe that we were going for there. I love Chris Medellin. He is amazing. He has a podcast as well. He also has a story that he's willing to share over and over again. He loves to connect with people with diverse backgrounds, and that comes through. And I just love working with someone who has a strong sense of who they are and where they're going. And also, if you don't yet have that strong sense, I love to help you figure that out.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might involve a few tears.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes when you're so close to it, it's really hard. It's like coaching yourself. It's
Yes.
always better to hire an expert to say, "Hey, Candice, could you help me and give me feedback because I can't see it, me trying to figure it out all on my own." Sometimes it's a
There's,
matter of questioning and answer to figure all
yeah.
this stuff out.
Yeah, you
And
have to have a
it's listening.
conversation. You have to say it out loud and see how that feels. But there's always clues. There's probably clues in your clients. So I'd go
Mhm.
back and look at your previous clients. Who did you enjoy working with the most? Why? What are those similarities that those people have? And that might give you clues as to how you want to show up or the types of clients that you want to call in on repeat. So you're attracting and not chasing.
I love it. And you talk a lot about being an introverted entrepreneur. So how can branding and marketing help with all of that?
I think it's almost a hack. If you are creating content and you know exactly who your target audience is, that is making it like less pressure to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's also taking less energy because I can make a 1 minute video that thousands of people see instead of having that conversation over and over with strangers because that would deplete me. I wouldn't be able
Mhm.
to survive. So I feel like content creation and branding is a hack for introverts. So if you are an introvert, this actually will work for you.
How do they muster up the confidence for some of them that have not been like full on, Raquel, I love content. Candice, I love content. I'm like scared of content. And you probably said inner work too, right? Earlier.
Yeah.
But like, how
Yeah.
do they just muster the confidence to just be like, F it, let's go?
Yeah. You don't. And I think that's a misnomer that you're not going to feel confident. Confidence comes from doing.
Hmm.
And so if you just let the idea go that you're supposed to feel confidence the first 100 times you push record, and just do the damn thing. Like that's it. That's where it's at. And I also often go back and talk to people about, hey, if your child was playing basketball for the first time and they were just like, hey, I'm going to go to practice, but I'm just going to sit on the bench every practice and I'm just going to play in the game on Saturday. You would say, that's not how this works, right? You have to put yourself out there and you have to practice. And sometimes things are going to go great and sometimes things are going to be hard. And that's okay. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And for some reason, people just think that people were born talking in a microphone, that people were born being on camera, and everyone just feels confident. Guess what? No, there is still some days when I'm not confident. There's still some days when I look like a mess and I don't want to show up. But honestly, the message matters more than anything. And so when it comes to all the excuses that you have, I don't feel confident. I hate my voice. Guess what? Everyone hates your voice. Everyone hates their voice, not your voice. To me, it's just excuses. But I will say the thing that helped me was I hired a coach. I swiped my credit card and I needed this to work.
Hmm.
And when she told me I needed to go live every day for 180 days, I didn't exactly do that, but I did 137 times. And just the repetition of doing that is the story I tell today as like the catalyst for change in my business. And I think sometimes you just have to do the damn thing, even
Hmm.
if you're like, I don't know, what's the first sentence? Or do I look weird? Or is my makeup funny today? Or I didn't do my hair, or whatever the thing is, just do it. And so many people won't that you immediately stand out when you do.
Yeah, all the things that you were saying, I just remember the very first episode of this podcast, which was like 3 years ago. How many times I was like, no, I can't do it. How many times I re-recorded and I was like, oh my God, it's out. And then you just keep doing it. Like you said, confidence comes from doing it and from doing reps. If you look at somebody even on stage, it's just because they've had probably more reps, but they still feel, I speak to so many speakers, they still feel a little bit of nervousness every time they get on that stage.
Yes, 100%. I feel nervous every time. And when I watch it back, I always think, oh, I wish I sounded more polished. I wish I talked more slowly. I wish all these different things. And yet, people are still in my DM saying, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh, this changed my business. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to do that. You called out exactly how I feel. And that's also, if you're looking for hacks, that's a hack. Say the scary thing that your client is afraid to say to you first.
Mm,
Oh, you hate your voice? Yes. Oh my gosh, I do hate my voice. Thanks for knowing that. Then they feel seen, right?
yeah.
Oh, you're too old. That's why. You just, those wrinkles are just getting to you. And girl, I get it. If I say that, then they're like, oh my gosh, yes. All humans have those feelings, I think.
Yeah.
I think. And oh, like you gained weight during the pandemic and you're still like not feeling like yourself. Totally get it. They're like, oh my gosh. And that's just human to human connection that takes pressure off of your audience, that helps them feel like you're a safe space to talk about it. In real estate, that might look like, hey, your credit's not the best. Here, I have someone who can talk to you. And you just say it before them
Mm.
and they know you've done it before and then they trust you.
Yeah. No one is perfect. No
Cool.
matter how much people think social media and all the highlight reels, there's always something that you can resonate with people. And sometimes they'll even say, I feel like you were talking to me. I feel like that quote, or I feel like with a post that you said, you like were thinking about what I was thinking about when I woke up this morning. So it's
That
so
is the
good.
best compliment when someone says, oh my gosh, did you write that post about me? I'm like, no, you're just a human and we all feel this. But since
Yes.
I said it, you feel more connected to me.
Well, speaking of change and like moving forward and looking in the future, how do you think, like, where do you see branding going, especially for real estate agents?
Branding is here to stay.
Mhm.
It's going to be a thing from here on out. And you need to build your personal brand with intention. When you build your personal brand with intention, you make it easy for other people to make connections. So
Mhm.
Melissa connected Raquel and I today because Melissa knows my brand and knows Raquel's brand and thought we'd be a good fit. Guess what? She was right. Why? Because we put ourselves out there enough and we talk about things that we're passionate about and we approach this work on a human to human relationship level. And of course, there are similar values here. And it's easy for people to make those connections when you put yourself out there enough that they know that.
Yeah. And it's no different when people refer you in a real estate business, right? It's so much easier to work with a referral than it is a cold lead that came off of a sign.
Yes. And when you build a brand with intention and you call in the right clients for you, those clients you love working with, their friends are likely similar. And
Mhm.
so you're just creating a web of the right people for you instead of only relying on paid leads who we all know are not always the right fit.
Yeah, 100%. So what's next for Candice?
What's next?
What are you
World
excited about?
domination.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited because our podcast is in the top 2.5%. Our podcast is called Not Nice Clever, and we want to be in the top 1%. So that is what we're working on this year and beyond. I'm excited to continue to have great conversations with people like you, Raquel, who are doing things in their space and really being a rock star and being a rock for a lot of people who might be going through a hard time right now. So I just love being able to connect with humans like you and obviously growing my design studio. So I've had my team for 3 years now, and we are small but mighty. But now it's time to begin to let people in. We have currently three designers, but hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have five.
So amazing. And where can people connect with you? You've dropped so much wisdom, so much value, and I'm sure people are going to follow you as well. And we'll put your handles all in our show notes.
Thank you. Instagram is the best place to reach me. My DMs are always open. So say hi, drop in the DMs. I'd love to talk with you. Let me know that you came from the podcast and we'll do something.
Yay. And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every single guest on the show is what does Candice do to play bigger in business or in life?
What I do to play bigger is connect with other entrepreneurs and come from a place of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
So good. So good. I really want to say thank you for being on our show. Thank you for your knowledge and your time. And I cannot wait to keep supporting all the things that you do and keep supporting you in playing bigger, my friend.
Thank you.